Hey gang, how are you? Good to see you. Welcome to Papa's Model Workshop. I'm Papa, and this is my workshop. This is the very first video for Papa's Model Workshop. I'm new to YouTube production, so be patient with me. I did a few YouTube videos before this one. Wasn't under Papa's Model Workshop. It was actually under my own personal name, just to try to get a lay of the land and get a feel for it. And I'm glad that I only did test runs before this, because those 3 videos didn't come out so great. So I'm hoping that this one comes out a little bit better. But as I said, just be a little bit patient with me. Let me tell you what we have going on here. I have a 1970 Plymouth. Okay, CUDA, and actually I got this started a couple of weeks ago, and I was up to the point where just about everything was painted, and I was installing the windshield, and I got a glue mark on the windshield, and here you go. All right. And my genius solution to that, getting that glue mark off, was to use a little bit of acetone on a Q-tip, and well, this is the result. Okay, so that didn't work out too well. So don't use acetone for removing glue marks on windshields. Ultimately, what ended up happening was the acetone had spilled on the body, the painted body. And I didn't realize it for a little while, so it just really kind of destroyed the body. So I went and I got another kit, all right, just so I could repaint the body. All of my parts, I usually take off and I keep them in a parts organizer like this. So all of the parts to that kit were safe. I just needed to repaint the CUDA. Now, this just came in yesterday, so I haven't even taken it out of the package yet. And if you ever find yourself in a position like this where you have to repaint the body for whatever reason, and you have to get a brand new one to do it, the inclination is to just paint the body. But when you stop and you think about it, there's a lot more to it than that. You have to paint the hood as well. The engine bay, a lot of times is the same color. So this will be the engine bay. So I have to mask off this back half here and then paint this, the body color. All right. And then, little things like the hood hinges and so forth, the side view mirrors, they're all going to be in that same color. So you have to stop and think and reference everything that's going to be that body color. So that's what I'm going to do this morning on this very first video of Papa's Model Workshop. So I'm going to take this upstairs. My workshop is down here in the basement. I'm going to fill up a pot with water and add some Dawn dishwashing detergent to the water and just let this soak for a little while, and then I'm going to scrub it with a toothbrush. All right. I know that there's a lot of guys that feel that this is unnecessary, and they've said that I've never done that and I've never had a problem. And if you haven't ever done this and you've never experienced a problem, then I guess continue doing that. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. For me, I have had problems twice in the past where I got fish eyes. Because in the mold injection process, there's a mold injection fluid that sometimes gets on the plastic. And if that gets on the plastic and then you go and try to paint over it, you get a fisheye effect, and just doesn't, it's a mess. So for me, taking the few minutes to do this Dawn in water preparation, I think is worth it. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to run upstairs with this and do that. I'm going to pause this. I'm not going to make you watch me put this in the soaking solution, because that's boring. So I will be right back. Okay, so I'm back from giving my body and the associated parts. The Dawn and water bath, everything is dry. So now the next thing that we want to do is we want to examine our parts. And upon doing that, now I don't know if you can see this, but there's some pretty deep scratches in here. So that's going to require some work. There's another one right back here. So generally what I do is after I do the Dawn and water bath, I will wet sand. I use sanding sponges primarily. I start out at 400 and then I go to 600. Then I generally go up to 1500. I don't know why this 1000 is in there, but and then I'll go up to 2000 and I'll round out at 3200. Now you can go all the way up as high as 8, 10, or even 12,000. I don't generally go that high. Usually I'll go up to 2,000 or 3,000. A lot of times I'll stop right at 2,000. Sometimes I'll go up to 3,200. So this is going to take some work. Haven't looked at these other parts yet. I will look at those after I get done with the body. So again, you know, if you're new to this, all you do is just dip your sandpaper or sanding sponge in this case, and just go over it, you know, and this is pretty straightforward, and I'm not going to bore all of you by watching me sand this whole thing. So I'm going to work on this and I'll get back to you again. And boy, that's even helping already. So the 400 was a good choice. But it's going to take a lot more work than what I just did. So again, I'm not going to bore you watching me sand this. So I'm going to pause this again. And when I have everything sanded up, then I will prime it, sand it again, and then we will be ready for paint. And our paint is going to be, well, I'm going to go with this lime green color. Now, the original Cuda that got destroyed with the acetate or acetone, I used this Createx Pearl lime green color. It came out pretty nice, actually. It was the first time I ever used Createx. The thing that I found with Createx is it's a bit difficult to use. I mean, it's not impossible. If you've got the patience, or if there's a particular color in the Createx line that you want to use, you can certainly get the job done. It's not an impossible task. It's just that there's a number of steps that have to be taken, and then you have to let the whole thing sit for about 15 or 20 minutes or so before you can use it. So what I'm going to do is, this is a pretty close color, and that's the reason why I am having to paint all of these other parts, even though they weren't damaged in the acetone attack, because if I'm going to do the body in this color, okay, then these colors have to match. So that's why all of these have to be painted. This that I'm going with is a Tamiya acrylic. It's X15. It's listed as light green, but it's very close. I call it lime green, but they call it light green. But it's very close. So this is just 2 parts paint and one part thinner, much easier. You know, and then I use the Mr. Leveling Thinner 400 for most of my paint, actually. There's a few paints that you can't use it with, like Vallejo. You know, Vallejo, you pretty much stick with what they have. But in this case, yeah, I can use it very nicely with the Tamiya paint. So that's what I'm going to do. And you know what? Let me just say this. This is a completely on the side thing, but I was talking to somebody on a Facebook page about glue and so forth. And I was trying to describe with this glue, you have this applicator, and sometimes it clogs. And I was trying my best to describe in the Facebook post how I use a staple. Okay, I take a staple, I straighten it out, and I leave one end bent up like that so I can use it as a handle. and then you just put the staple inside the applicator, and that prevents it from clogging. So I just happened to think of that because it was sitting over here, and I'm sure that the gentleman I was speaking with is not watching this video, but I just thought I would cover that as a complete aside kind of a thing. Okay, so listen, I'm going to pause this and get back to sanding this, and I'll get back to you in just a bit. Okay, so I have finished sanding the body, and those scratch marks are all gone, and it's pretty smooth. So the sanding is well, it's essential. Did the same thing with the hood. So these are all sanded nice, and what I do is, rather than dry everything off after wet sanding it with a paper towel, because a paper towel might scratch things up again, I keep a chamois cloth to go over everything and dry it off. It's nice and soft, and we won't really get any more scratches. And there are a number of options for sanding. I've got a sanding, a whole set of sanding sticks starting from 80 grit, goes up to, well, this one is 2,000. I think it goes up to 7,000 or 8,000 on these particular sanding sticks that I have. And then I have smaller sanding sticks in various grits, and these are nice because it gets down into a little point. So if you have a little area that you have to squeeze into, that'll go in there real nicely. And if you have a big thing to get off, like the sprue that was holding the hood was attached here and right up here. And when you clip that off, and it's important to have a good pair of nippers. These are Rui tool nippers, and I don't think you can quite see how thin the blade is, but that gets in nice and thin, and it'll clip the sprue from the piece rather nicely. But even still, you're going to have a residual left. So at that particular point, I'll defer to a file. These are files that are made specifically for plastic models. So I actually have a magnetic ribbon here. This is my paint prep station where I'm sitting right now. Over on the other side of the workshop, I have a assembly workbench, and I have a magnetic ribbon on both benches, and it'll hold things like my nippers and my files and so forth. So that's a good thing to have. So all of this has been wet sanded, and now I'm going to get ready to prime it. Now, if I'm going to be using this green color, there's a couple of options with priming. Okay, you can go with a white primer, a gray primer, or a black primer. And something that I find rather helpful is these test cards by Display. I think these are Display. Yeah, Display. And you can mix up your color, and you can spray right across the top, and you'll see how your color is going to interact with white, gray, or black. I'm thinking maybe going with a black primer. I have a Stynylrez black primer, so that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to test my color against this test card, and it's nice because you can write down what paint you used, the mixing ratio. You can put a date on there if you want to. So, you can add some, notes to your test as well. And then you can save these and catalog it and refer to it, later on. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to pause this again and get ready to do that. And I'll catch you back here again in another few minutes. Okay, so I've got my paint in my paint shaker, and it's important to shake these paints up. So I'm going to turn this on, and you can probably hear it. Now I'm going to try to maneuver this so you can see this. Can you see that? There we go. Okay, that's my Just hang on, guys. Bear with me because I'm taking this out of the mount. And yeah, this is a paint shaker that works just terrific. All right. So I'm all done with that. And for some of you folks who are maybe just getting into, the hobby, I'm going to show you how to mix the paint. I know a lot of you folks that are doing this for a long time know how to do this, but I know that there's a number of people who are new, and I just want to go over how you would mix the paint. Okay, so I'm going to pause this and remount this, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, hang on. Okay, so our paint is all shaken up, shook up, shake up, and even though it was just shaken up, this is just my own little, quirky thing, I guess. I still stir it with a little bit of a stir with a popsicle stick, a coffee stirrer. It doesn't really need to be. That's just, like I said, my little quirky thing. So anyway, this is all set. Now, these are great for mixing paint. All right. They're clear and they're marked with different, increments. This is marked at a half a fluid ounce, and this is marked at a quarter of a fluid ounce. And the reason why I have them both marked that way is because I want to use this one for paint. I want to use this one for thinner. Okay. And I put a little X. I don't know if you can see that. I put a little X on that one to make sure that I don't mix up, the thinner cup and the paint cup. This is a pipette. Again, I know you experienced folks know how to do this, but for some of the beginners, I use the pipette to withdraw the paint from the jar. And I have this marked at 2 milliliters up here and 1 milliliter down there. So, if you want to mix at a ratio of 2 to 1, as we're going to be doing here, you would just fill your pipette up to 2 milliliters. And then afterwards, you would use your pipette with 1 milliliter of thinner. Okay, so you would have a 2 to 1 ratio. Do not use the same pipette for thinner and paint. Okay, now I use the Mr. Color leveling thinner, and I keep a pipette right here with a rubber band. So this pipette doesn't get used for anything but thinner, so we don't get any cross-contamination issues there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to withdraw the paint. Okay, I'm up to 2 milliliters, and I'm going to just fill this up. All right. And actually, I'll tell you, I think if I'm going to be using that much paint, it might just be easier to pour that up to the fill line. There we go. Okay, good. And then wipe off any excess that gets on your jar or bottle. Okay. If any of you have ever watched Barbatos Rex on YouTube, he's kind of insistent that you always wipe your bottles or jars. Not just particularly because he's a neat freak, but there's a reason for it. It's a good reason, because if you get that paint on there and then it dries, it makes a little micro air gap. And when the air gap, gets around there, the air gets into your bottle, and then it dries up your paint and makes it cruddy. So I have to give Barbatos Rex the credit on that one. And if you have not ever watched his videos, I would highly recommend it, particularly if you're a beginner. I myself have learned a lot by watching him. He tests equipment and tools and paints and thinners, and it tells you how to use it. So he is an excellent resource on YouTube. So now I'm going to use my leveling thinner, okay? And that actually, let's see, I went up quite a bit above my fill line, so let's just withdraw some of that. See, I'm quite a bit above the fill line to make that a 2-to-1 mix. All right. Okay, that's better. That is better. And a smart thing to do, which I am not doing, so this is going to go under the heading of do as I say and not as I do. It's probably not a good idea to be mixing paint and thinner this close to your parts, because if you have an accident, it's going to get on there, and that already happened to me with the acetone, with the original Cuda body, which is why I'm sitting here with a new one. Okay, so probably should not do that. You should remove these things before you start mixing right next to it. One other thing I want to show you is I showed you the shaker that I have. You can also use something like this. Okay, this is a mixer. You just turn that on. It's got a daisy wheel at the end, and you can put that right down into the bottle. All right, and you can mix up your paint using something like this. I don't remember how much this was. I think I got it on Amazon. Don't quote me, but I think it was about $10. Not positive. It wasn't expensive, so that's another possibility for you with regard to mixing up your paint. Okay, so now I am going to let me get rid of these sanding sponges. Okay, they're just taking up room right now. Okay, just bear with me, guys. Like I said, I'm new to YouTube, so all right. So I'm going to simply dump my thinner in here, okay, and set that aside. And I'm going to go back to my popsicle stick and mix this up. Can you see that? You know what? I'm righty, and I think when I use my right hand, I'm blocking the camera, so I'll use my left hand. It's a little awkward. All right, I'm going to go back to this because I can't do it with my left hand, so. Okay, and our paint is all set for the airbrush, okay? So I think we are going to set this aside, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to prime this. And again, as I said, I'm going to test my primer. I'm sorry, yeah, my primer. No, I'm not going to test the primer. I'm going to test this. There we go. I'm going to test this on the test card. Okay, that's why we're mixing the paint up first. Then we're going to go to the primer, okay? Bear with me, guys. Okay, let me pause this, and I'll see you over at the paint booth, okay? Okay, so I'm back at the paint booth, and I'm going to be using an Iwata trigger handle, and it's a 0.3 needle in there, and I'm going to simply put my color right inside, okay, and let's test that, okay, and let's see what we get here. Now this is an acrylic, remember, and with acrylic you want to put it on very lightly. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with airbrushing, this is a dual action airbrush. And what that means is you pull back on the trigger, okay, just as I'm doing now. And right now, there's a pause there. I'm pulling back and I can feel the trigger stopping, all right? And all that's coming out right now is air. That's it. If I push back beyond that little pause point, then I get paint. And when you push back past that pause point, you can regulate how much paint comes out, right? and I've got a very, very fine mist coming out right now. And the further back I pull that trigger, the more paint comes out. Can you see that? All right, so it's important with acrylic in particular to start out with a very light coat, all right, and go over it like that. And can you see on this test card, the pigment or the color is beginning to come into play, all right? And you want your paint to build on itself. You're using the paint. Let me tip this way. I think maybe you can see a little bit better. You want this paint to actually build on itself. You have to do this in layers. If you come in here and just blast it with acrylic, it's going to run off. All right. Now I've got a little bit of a fine layer on there, and now I'm pulling back a little bit more on the trigger. I'm going to fill in this white. Now I'm going to fill in the gray, and now I'm going to fill in the black. Okay, and now I've got a pretty good idea of what this will look like with either a white, a gray, or a black primer. And I'm glad that I did this because I mentioned a few minutes ago that I was leaning towards going with the black. And in doing the test card, I like the white primer the best. This is the color that I'm looking for, so that's what I'm going to go with. Regarding this test card, as I mentioned, you can put all the pertinent information right here. The paint that we used, whether it's an acrylic, a lacquer, or an enamel, your mixture ratio. I even wrote down what airbrush I used and what my PSI is. And by the way, I'm going at 22 PSI. All right, so I'm going to put a little bit more on this black one. All right, and it helps to have a lighted paint booth because, you know, you can get an accurate idea of what your colors are going to look like. Yeah, I think I like that white the best. So, okay. So I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to go with the white primer. So I'm going to see you back at the paint prep bench. Hang on one second. Okay, I'm back here at the paint booth, and since I decided to go with a white instead of a black, I decided to go with the Tamiya spray can. This is a very good primer in white, so I'm going to go with this. All right, so we're going to shake this up real well. And before we do this, okay, this is an important thing actually. Brush off your piece that's going to be painted, or in this case, primed. All right, and that way you'll get any debris or things that are floating in the air. Make sure you see I'm getting right in between there. And in my case, I have 3 dogs, and they're down here quite often. So I have dogs' hairs floating in the air and all that kind of thing. So make sure you go over your pieces with a brush. This happens to be an anti-static brush. So Tamiya sells this. Not expensive. Good thing to do. So let's when you're spraying white primer on white plastic, difficult sometimes to see where you've painted or primed and where you may have missed. And what I'm relying on here is the glare of the lights in the paint booth to determine if I've gotten everything. So I think that's pretty good. Here's another thing I want to point out. This car holder Can you see how I have this taped? Because these two pieces come apart. And if you don't tape that, or at the very least make sure that you hold it here, and you're tipping this like this thing can separate, and your car body or whatever it is you're holding can fall into this gunk down here. So for me, I taped it and just got away from that problem. All right, this is going to go right into the dehydrator now. And I'm going to get the rest of my pieces. Speaking of dogs, I've got a great big one behind me who's going to probably start moaning and groaning in a minute because she wants a bone. All right, let's prime these parts. Firewall is going to be the same color as the body color. And you want to make sure that you get all sides, okay? Front, back, and all the sides, all right? You want to make sure you get all the sides. Into the dehydrator. Okay. Okay, making sure I get all of my sides. Okay. Don't go too heavy with this because you don't want it to run and drip. All right. Okay. I want to make sure I get inside here. These things are easy to overlook. The side mirrors. I can't tell you how many times I have forgotten to paint the side mirrors, and then, you know, you have to go back and all that sort of thing. Now, you know, if you're using a rattle can or a spray can like this, you know, using a particular color. All right, let's see, what have I got here? Okay. Sorry, I bumped the camera. If you're using like a Tamiya spray paint and you forget something, well, it's not that big of a deal because you can just grab the spray can and just spray it. But if you're airbrushing, you are mixing your paint at a given ratio. Like I said before, you saw me mixing up the green color with 2 parts of the color, the lime green color, and 1 part of the thinner. And, you know, it's probably not a big deal to remix that, but if you can keep it all consistent and not have to remix, it just works out better. That's why when I mix up a paint for the airbrush, I'll actually make a little bit more than I think I'm going to need, so I have plenty in reserve. And then what you can do is you can grab one of these jars, okay, like this is from an Impala that I did a little while ago, and I had the paint mixed with Tamiya X1 gloss black acrylic. I marked it, and this is the paint that I had left over, so I can put it in a sealed cap like this. Actually, I've got the date. August 19th was when I did this. You know, and you can save your paint. All right. So let me put this in the dehydrator. And of course, we've got the hood. I actually have a wooden dowel that I cut, and the top of the wooden dowel is a very straight cut, and I will take, well, you can't see it, but I've got 3M double-sided tape holding this. This is just simply a paint stirrer, but I use that double-sided 3M tape on the top of that wooden dowel, and it holds something like this very nicely. I'm using this because I can't find my wooden dowel, so trying to be organized is helpful. Okay, so this is going to go into the dehydrator as well. So hang on, and I'll meet you back over at the paint prep area. Okay, we're back here at the paint prep area, and all the pieces that we just primed are in the dehydrator. They are at a setting of 120 degrees, and I'll run that for about a half an hour, and everything will come out perfectly dry. At that point, I will sand everything again, utilizing a similar procedure, starting with that's 600, starting with my 400 and going up to 600, and up the ladder to about 2000 or maybe 3200, and then we will be ready to paint our color. Okay, so I think for now that'll do it for this first episode of Papa's Model Workshop. I hope that this came out reasonable enough where it's watchable. Again, like I said, I'm brand new to this, so I'm sure that there's lots of mistakes and gaffes in this. So stick with me. It'll get better as I learn how to do all of this. I've got the grandchildren down here right now, which is another reason why it's good to wrap this up. So I will see you in the next episode. And, I have a Facebook page. It's Papa's Model Workshop on Facebook. And I also have an email address too. It's Papa's Model Workshop @gmail.com. You can leave a comment here, or you can leave a comment on Facebook, or you can send me an email and let me know what you thought. Or you can hit the thumbs up, or if you really think this is terrible, I guess you could hit the thumbs down. But in any event, I would love it if you gave me an indication that you did watch this. That way I know I'm not talking to myself, and then I'll make another video. So I will see you in the next video, and we will begin to apply that lime green Tamiya paint. What is this? Forgot already. X15. All right. So have a great day, and thanks for watching.